What was the cringiest thing you did in your first relationship? We planned, to the minute, when our first kiss would be. Not too bad, right? We were both nervous and it was both of our first relationships. I made a website with a countdown clock. Was walking her home anticipating kissing her for the first time at her doorstep and kept licking my lips because I didn't want to kiss her with a dry mouth. Halfway to her house she looks at me and says, "Stop doing that." I realized I probably looked really creepy. We were in 7th grade and had been dating for maybe 2 weeks. I printed a marriage certificate and showed it to her the first time she came over to my house. She called her mom and asked to go home immediately. Never talk when we actually saw each other but texted constantly when we weren't in the same room. I wrote the girl a poem. It included the phrase, "slightly too large nose," and also used the word Kmart. Edit, since there's been a little response to this, I tried to think back on how the poem went. It was something like this: "With your slightly too large nose, and your great big heart. A love like this can't be found at Kmart." Ugh. Well, she said that she thought we would be better off just being friends, so I decided that I needed to do some big grand gesture to prove my love. It always worked in the movies, so what could go wrong? I practiced singing the song for weeks on my ukulele and figured that I would wait until after her softball practice was done and surprise her. I sang "You're Beautiful" by James Blunt. It's a fucking miracle anyone talked to me after that. Edit, getting a lot of questions, so I'll try my best to answer most of them and keep it short. I wasn't a terrible singer, but I wasn't good. It didn't help that I added intentional breaks in my voice to make the song more emotionally powerful or something dumb like that. After I was done and stood in horror as her friends laughed at me and she stormed away, I kind of did a sad George Michael-esque walk in the rain to my car as I contemplated what would be easier, moving school districts or just driving off a cliff. We were not friends after that. It was super embarrassing for her and everyone teased her for months by signing James Blunt songs to her. I definitely had it worse. But high school kids are dicks. It also didn't help that about 2 weeks after we were assigned as lap partners and she raised her hand and asked the teacher if she could switch partners and the whole class snickered. It seems sweet reading the story, but really it was super creepy and I put her in an impossible spot. If anything positive came from it, I never had any troubles approaching women at bars etc. because I already knew what the worst possible thing that could happen was, so it was only uphill from there. We took a break and I posted a video to Creep by Radiohead with the caption, "For that special someone." Ugh, I almost cringed off my chair writing this. We had been texting back and forth, so I knew going to his house I would lose my virginity. Dude opens the door wearing a full suit for the occasion and escorts me holding my hand into his bedroom. Jesus Christ. Edit, thanks for the fun comments. I have been very entertained reading them. To give some context, it wasn't his first time. We had been dating for around 2 months. I was determined and did go through with the deed. And what happened after was way worse than the suit. Dude had apparently told the entire neighborhood he was getting laid. And 3 to 4 of his friends broke into the house through the terrace in the middle of the deed. I promise I'm not making this up. After the whole episode was over, he left to the friend's party without inviting me. So, he wasn't really a gentleman after all, as the suit had suggested. A couple days later we broke up. At the time I felt horrible, but now it makes for the juiciest story. First real girlfriend in high school. We used to talk over the voice calls on MSN Messenger late at night. She wanted to just hear my voice, and I very quickly ran out of things to say. So she said I should just read whatever book I had around. She spent the next 30 minutes listening to my Your New Gateway Computer and How to Use It booklet. I was 17. We had just had a fight. I drove to his house and blasted Scars by Papa Roach from my car and just stood awkwardly at the end of the driveway waiting for him to come out. I really wish this weren't true. Edit, added context. Told her I loved her within the first 24 hours at the school parking lot. I was 17-18, first GF gave me a BJ. I was still a virgin. I kissed her right afterwards, not thinking she's still have a mouthful of cum. Yeah, snowballed. Anyways, this lead her to believe I liked that, so she did it to me repeatedly. Keep in mind this is 93-94, so no internet to realize this isn't normal. I also grew up really fucking sheltered. After about 4/5 months I finally tell her, could you spit it out before kissing me? She responds, oh, I thought you liked it. I always thought it was weird. Probably got snowballed 20 times or more in that time period. TLDR, first GF snowballed me. I didn't mention I didn't like it for 4/5 months. Edit, answering some questions. Glad everyone got a laugh. What did I do? You know what I did. I live in infinite shame with where the cum ended up. Why did I kiss her right after? First orgasm with a girl ever at that point. I was in love and did something out of passion. Sex ed was not taught in my household and barely at my school. We weren't having penetrative sex for the first 6 months or so, that's why so much oral. She was petrified at the thought of pregnancy. I grew up with an antenna and 3 channels. No cable, no VCR until I was 15/16, so very little exposure to media at that point. I was basically an invertebrate then. I was terrified of almost everything. That's why I didn't speak up. Let my mom purchase custom matching airbrushed shirts of 2 people kissing, with my girlfriend and my name on them. After I saw Eric propose to Donna on that 70s show, I went out and got a 25-cent ring from the local Pizza Hut and proposed. At school, in front of everyone. I was 16. Edit, I'm glad you all could share a cringe with me. To answer the burning question, she did say yes. We didn't last. Sorry, no happy ending here. Just teenagers doing impulsive things. She wanted to give me my first blowjob, which I was all for. I was unsure of etiquette, so I didn't give any warning for the finale. It caught her by surprise. She choked, had an asthma attack from it. All I could do was pat the top of her head a couple times and say thanks, champ. He French kissed me after eating a bacon double cheeseburger with onions and all sorts of other stinky stuff. I told him I had a bad experience with French kissing with a guy before him. Lies. He was my first kiss and I would appreciate if he never did it again. Bonus cringe, I rubbed vapor rub near my eyes to make myself cry when I broke up with him and told him I was overwhelmed and needed to focus on school. I was in 8th grade. Removed. Had my first relationship at age 17. We were each other's first for everything. Basically only ever gave him hand jobs cause he wasn't very hygienic. He insisted on keeping his underwear on, so I'd have to rub him over his boxers. He'd come inside his boxers and then leave them on for the rest of the day. The odd time he didn't have boxers on, he'd grab a sock and come inside of it and throw it in the laundry pile. His mom did all the laundry. So disgusting every time I think about it. She started to ignore me at school. This was like maybe 1 or 2 weeks after we started dating. I called her house like 6 or 7 times one afternoon after school until her mom picked up, who was basically furious because I had been calling. I explained to her that Alexa was ignoring my calls. I hear in the background, Alexa, why aren't you answering the phone? To which she responds, because he's weird and he just keeps calling. I hung up the phone and went to my room. I carved her name in my wall with a pen. I still cringe about it to this day. This thread has made me aware people were doing a lot more serious fucking in HS than I was. I always suspected as much. Gave away my favorite blanket from childhood. Literally the dumbest cringes thing I have ever done. I miss that blanket. I hit my girlfriend with my car. It was a complete accident. We are still friends and it is a story that still comes up in conversation every now and then. I was too immature to talk about us one day having sex, so I'd giggle and say, "Do you know?" I was super shy back in the day and I really liked this guy who had weirdly flirted with me in one of our classes. He told me I looked like some random celebrity when I wore my hair down and how hot she was. So I never wore my hair up again for the entirety of school. I replied later by slipping a note in his locker but didn't sign it. A few days after that, I threw in a t-shirt I thought he would like. He didn't know who it was from until weeks later when he finally wore it to school to see if anyone said something. My BFF at the time did, and he realized it was me. Super creepy on my end. We ended up dating for a day before we broke up because we were stupid kids. Now, 15 years later, we reconnected and are now married. So, totally worked as planned.